What if the darkest moment of your life, the one you never talk about, became the very thing that saved another mother's life? If you're a woman who held a baby for the very first time and instead of feeling an overwhelming sense of joy, connection, and love, instead you felt fear, panic, anxiety, or complete emotional numbness, then this episode is for you. And if you sat there wondering, why don't I feel the way everyone says I'm supposed to feel? Please know that you are not alone. Today's conversation is one of the most important I've ever had on this podcast, and it is in honor of Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week. This is a week dedicated to breaking the silence around maternal mental health struggles and helping mothers feel seen, heard, and supported. In this episode, we are talking specifically about postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and perinatal mental health, the parts of new motherhood that nobody puts on an Instagram feed. My name is Odelia, and this is the Midlife Awakening podcast. It's a podcast for women navigating the profound, messy, and often unspoken transitions of midlife. Whether you're a new mother, a seasoned mum, or someone who loves one, this episode is for you. Now, before we begin, I want to give you a heads up. In today's episode, we are discussing postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety in depth. We are also covering topics that include self-harm, suicidal ideation, and a suicide attempt. These are shared with great care and with the intention of breaking stigma and saving lives. If any of these topics are too sensitive for you right now, please take care of yourself first. You can return to this episode when you are ready, and I will link support resources in the show notes below. My guest today is Steph Skirr, a mom of two, a survivor of severe postpartum depression and anxiety, and the co-founder of Brighter Skies, a grassroots campaign committed to better perinatal well-being, because as Steph says, no family deserves to be left in the dark. Steph's story begins with the birth of her son Harlan, a 17-hour induction that spiraled into severe postnatal anxiety, a month of internal torment, and ultimately a moment of crisis that led her to a mother and baby inpatient unit she didn't even know existed. She has since been through this twice, and she is here today not just to share her story, but to make sure no other mother has to find her way through the dark alone. In today's episode, we cover what postpartum depression and anxiety really look like and feel like, because it's rarely what you think. We talk about the gaps in perinatal care, the postcode lottery of support, what mother and baby units are and why you don't need to fear them, the danger of social media's perfect mother narrative, and how to support a loved one who may be suffering. This is a conversation about shame, survival, and the extraordinary power of speaking out. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Midlife Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Odelia. This is a podcast about transformation for women who are waking up to who they really are while navigating everything that comes with midlife. And I want you to know I'm on this journey right alongside you. This is the show where we explore everything from the spiritual tools that can help us in our daily practices to healing modalities that we can use to heal what we've been carrying for so long, to the everyday midlife topics that a midlife woman faces, like perimenopause, finances, career changes, and so much more. Each week we go deeper into what it means to heal, to awaken, and to finally become the most authentic version of yourself. I'm so glad that you found your way here. Hi, Steph. Welcome to the Midlife Awakening podcast with Odelia. I'm so glad that you could join us today. This is a very important conversation that we'll be having and one that is very close to my heart. So I'm so glad that you could join us and share your story today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So let's start off. What did life look like for you before you became a mom? Who was Steph?
Who was Steph? I would say somebody fun-loving, bubbly, energetic. I've got quite an distinctive laugh. And we probably hear that along the way. So I just wanted to pre-warn you because it does sound quite like a squawk. I don't want to frighten anybody. So I suppose just normal really. Sort of fill my cup up with like friends and family. Love being outdoors. Follow quite a lot of sports. So just normal, I think.
Then you get pregnant with Harlan. So Tell us a little bit about Harlan's birth. On your website, you mentioned a 17-hour induction. So what was that like?
I mean, obviously being first time mum, it's such a ride, isn't it? You can't really plan for what's going to happen. So we had like partial like waters had broken, so they'd like sort of put it out there of, oh, there's a risk to baby, like we do really feel like we need to induce you. And at the time, like you just kind of go with it because you trust the medical professionals, don't you?
Yeah.
But I think if I could go back now, I probably would question that level of risk. But then I think if anything had happened to Harlan, you can't forgive yourself, can you? So it's such a ride of emotions. But yeah, so we had to start the induction process. That was obviously with like a pessary to see if anything could start, me going into labour. There was a slight little bit of progress, but I still had to have my like waters broke like manually, which wasn't pleasant. And then so that was like the whole sort of night into the morning, about 6 o'clock, I think, or 5:30. I had my waters broke and then started onto the drip from like 6:30. And like little did I know that basically created me to have just like constant contractions. It was like my body almost reacted to it too well, and that's kind of then what led into, I suppose, it was a bit of a perfect storm, to be honest, because our midwife in the room, she didn't really even speak to us. I don't think she even introduced herself. She was just kind of like a uniform in the corner, and I think we just felt very much left to it and weren't really, I suppose you just don't know what kind of level of pain's like acceptable or like what's happening, and we just felt really alone. It was quite frightening. And then, so obviously then Harlan, he'd done so well throughout the whole thing, like he'd kept so stable, but it wasn't till like right to the end where I had nothing left to give. I was absolutely worn out, hadn't slept the entirety from like the previous night, and then gone into the whole induction process and then started on the drip in the morning. I was absolutely done. I had nothing left, and it wasn't till then his oxygen started to dip. So I had to have like an episiotomy to be able to get him out and deliver him safely, and that would have been about 10 to 2 on his birthday. So it was I suppose it was the start of everything that was to come, really, because as much as I didn't know what was going on, being a new mummy, I just knew something wasn't right in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you touched on, like, as a first-time mom, you really don't know what is normal. You don't know. You have no clue because you're told this, everything's going to be fine. I mean, I remember doing the NCT classes and the focus was very much on everything's going to go really well. There's no, nothing to be worried about. Don't be scared. And we did not have that experience. And coming to your point about the contractions on top of each other, I had a very, very similar experience. And the midwife actually explained it to me afterwards. And she said it's like a kamikaze birth because it's just like non-stop. And that is exhausting. Like, no, I remember my husband at the time saying, you've got to do your breathing. You've got to do your breathing because we had done hypnobirthing, because we were going to do this like ultra calm birth. And I was like, I literally cannot catch my breath. I cannot catch my breath to do breathing because it is just too intense. And it's one on top of the other. There is no in between space to do any breathing. So it's quite an intense experience for some people. And I don't know if that is communicated enough, to be honest. Yeah,
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah. And so you said you knew immediately that something wasn't right. And what did that feel like? How did that feel at that time?
I suppose like I kept trying to tell myself, give yourself a break, Steph. You've just given birth and obviously been, and like we said, first time mum, you don't know what you're expecting. So I remember just thinking, it'll be fine. But it was, how I can best describe it was, I was absolutely terrified. The fear, like looking back now, it was like an anxiety, but it just went off the scale. Like I couldn't even be like on my own. I needed to be with Andrew, was like my hubby, the whole time. And then seeing Harlan as well, like I needed them just right there. And it was this really just overwhelming feeling of just fear. I just couldn't get my head around it. And then also just not being able to really function, which again, I kept thinking, well, you've just had a baby, like what? But it was almost like some parts of my brain had just switched off. Like the midwife was helping me get cleaned up and just sorted, and I couldn't function to even get dressed or realize that the water was emptying out of the bath. I can't, it sounds so bizarre when I say it out loud now, but it was like everything that I could do just stopped. All simple things just stopped, and then this overwhelming fear. And so obviously we had the afternoon together, but I knew visiting times, like Andrew would need to leave at 7 p.m. And I was just watching the clock thinking, he can't go. I can't do this if he goes. And I'm, we're obviously close and as a couple but I've never felt like that for needing him, like never. I can't really describe it other than that. I just knew something. I just didn't feel like me, that something had shifted, but I couldn't tell you what it was. I just thought it was because I'd had a baby and I needed to just give myself a break and everything had come right. And I was almost waiting for like the next day for things to just feel a little bit like myself. But yeah, it just didn't come.
And you felt like that immediately, straight after having Harlan. You already started to feel that anxiety if he leaves, if Andrew leaves the room, I need him here.
Absolutely.
And that's quite a common sign, isn't it? That's quite a common sign of postpartum anxiety setting in. Because I know I had the same thing. It didn't happen right away. It was probably the next week when I started noticing that my husband, he couldn't even be in the next room. I was like, no, you're going to take a nap. You have to take the nap next to me right here on the couch because you can't even be in the next room. I don't want you in the next room. You have to be here with me. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think that is one of the most common signs that something is wrong. Because you do get told about baby blues, but there's a very big difference between having the baby blues, which lasts a couple of days, and it turning into something a lot more serious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I haven't got anything to kind of like prove it, but I worry so much now with the experience, what we've been through, that if there's any new parents out there or even existing, mums, because it doesn't just happen first time, it's not picky, is it? If someone puts it down to baby blues and it's not that, and it's like they keep thinking it's going to get better, but then, they're almost like don't want to mention it because it's like, oh, it's the baby blues, and they're worried to like it's going to get dismissed. So yeah, the term baby blues it hits a whole differently now that we've gone through what we've gone through.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest thing that people misunderstand about postpartum depression and anxiety?
I mean, speaking very negatively, I suppose we've had a few people kind of, not people that are particularly close to us, but there is that kind of chat around, or what do you have to be sad about? You've got everything. And it's almost like that feeling of like, are you just a bit upset? I'm like, no. And I'm not saying I wish it was that, but it was just, I think there's just such a lack of understanding, and that kind of like, oh, well, can you go for a walk and won't that help? And it just, I suppose once, until you've kind of experienced something like that with your mental health, and I hadn't previously, but now I just have a total new understanding of, it's crippling really, like how it can affect you. It's not as simple as, oh, you just got to cheer up a little bit. It does. So it can be quite some nasty comments about it, really. But I don't try and be negative about that. People don't understand. There just isn't enough like sort of conversations around it, and I think that is half the battle. Lack of education leads to a lot of misunderstanding of what these conditions actually mean and what they look like. Because I guess a lot of people assume you just cry all the time. And I don't know about like yourself, but it wasn't for a long time that I could actually cry. Like, to start with, when I was probably at my worst, there was like nothing. And I think I would have given anything to be able to cry, but it didn't necessarily look like, I suppose, that stereotypical sadness that you maybe would think with depression. So I think there's just a lack of understanding around it, isn't there? Because I just don't think we talk about it enough.
Absolutely, there's not enough conversations about this topic, and that's why I wanted to talk about it on the show. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what were some of the things that you were experiencing, maybe that can help sort of people understand, even in identifying it in themselves, or maybe they have a loved one who's just had a baby, being able to identify that when it could get a lot more serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and everyone is so different and it's so personal to each person. But obviously, I'm very happy to share what we were sort of experiencing and what I was feeling. And as like I say, it started off very much in like a high state of like, adrenaline and anxiety, and that just did not seem to fade out. It was very much that fight or flight, and just always, I suppose, that feeling just being really, really unsettled. And I mean, it spiraled so quickly for us, but I know that doesn't always work that way. But it was all within the first week of having Harlan and obviously being at hospital and then heading home. I just honestly thought I was losing my mind because I couldn't do anything that I could have done previously. Just cooking tea, I was having to like write down all of the timings that I'd put anything in or started cooking it on, and I couldn't. I was trying to, like, it was so difficult to like work it all out to the time that we were going to eat. And I just remember thinking, why can't I do this anymore? Like, everything that just was normal just was flipped on its head, stuff that you just took for granted. So I just couldn't focus, I couldn't make decisions. Obviously couldn't be on my own. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be still at all. Like, the restlessness was just unbelievable. Like, I remember my legs moving, but I wasn't even moving them. And I'd say to Andrew, "Can I move?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can't sit still." I'd sort of pace around. Looking back now, I mean, it was just horrendous. It was awful. But yeah, it just, I suppose, to start with, it didn't maybe look like a stereotypical, what people would maybe consider postnatal depression. I remember it was the Sunday morning and I just had my head in my hands in our spare room, and I just was leant over the bed, and I said to Andrew, I was like, "Baby, you've got to ring someone, you've got to do something. I don't know what's happening to me. Like, I cannot put my finger on it, but I'm terrified." And so we rang the crisis team, and they were sort of looking after us for a little while, which was when one of the doctors then had said, "It's not postnatal depression." I'd mentioned that to him and said that's what I think's happening, because I'm not like this. You know, I could start to slowly see the joy in everything was starting to go, and that's not like me. And I sort of said, "I think it's that." And he was like, "Oh, you let me worry about that. You're just a really anxious new mum." And I felt not heard. And I wish I'd sort of had the confidence at the time to go, actually, no, I think it's more than that, but I didn't. As a
first-time mum, you don't know what's going on, and you're trusting the medical professionals. I know I had a very similar experience with my GP, where he told me to go home and enjoy my baby. There's nothing wrong with me, and that I needed to stop calling the GP practice. And I was like, but there is something wrong, and I don't know what it is, but there is something wrong. And I had to eventually pay to go and see a private doctor.
Oh,
and she was very good. She did all the blood, because I thought there was something physically wrong with me. She did all the blood work, and she was like, "I don't see anything wrong. Tell me more about what you're feeling." And then I came back to her office and I said, "I think I might have postnatal depression and anxiety." And she said, "I think so too. And I think we need to get you some help." And that sort of I then changed GPs, and the new GP was a lot more accommodating and a lot more open. And so things started to move. But yeah, I had similar, and there's nothing worse than you sitting in a doctor's office, someone who you are hoping can help you, because as a woman, we are very instinctual, we are very intuitive, we know if something's wrong with ourselves. And to be told to go home and enjoy your baby, there's nothing wrong with you, is so difficult to hear as a new mom. And you've got this rage of emotions going on anyway, your hormones all over the place, and to hear that, it's just, that was, yeah. So I can relate 100% to what you're saying, that there's a lack of support on that front. Absolutely. Which is so sad and so unfortunate.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's the worst when you've almost had that confidence and the courage, I think, to actually say, you know, something's really not right here. And then to be told and almost it to be dismissed is, you think, no, don't do that to me. Like, it's taken a lot for me to get to that and to reach out. But I think that was the opposite to us. Like, I suppose I was like desperate to know what was going on and to reach out for help, because I was just like, this is yeah, it was mind blowing, really. And I think the scariest thing was the sleep. Like, I was so wired all of the time that I couldn't even sleep. And even if I'd nodded off, I never even felt like I was asleep. And if I was, it was more than like, it wouldn't be more than like a couple of minutes. And like, I remember my mum saying you were asleep, but she said you could see your eyes were like flickering. She said you could tell you were still like thinking and whirring away. And I mean, she said it was like awful to see, really. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, so from the crisis team point of view, they wanted to get me to have some sleep. So I had some sleeping tablets, but they didn't even work. It was it was frightening. It was
Yeah.
so frightening.
And sleep can be so important. I remember, I mean, I could go to sleep, but if I woke up for a night feed, I couldn't get back to sleep. I just couldn't. I would just then lie there, and that's when I feel like that's when it would spiral. And so eventually we got to a point where my husband was like, okay, I'm doing night feeds from now on. You cannot, you need to stay asleep. And so we had an agreement between us that he would take over the night feeds. And I can also relate to the restlessness. I would have to walk. I would go in the morning and I'd have to find, there were a couple of places that had long walks, and that's what I would literally do the whole day. The whole day I would just walk around
Yeah.
with him in the pram and just walk and walk. And then I'd get home and then I'd finally feel like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better now. I can sit down. But the restlessness, it was every single day.
Yeah. It's frightening, really. I started to not want to go out the house, or I just couldn't go out the house. But then that was flipped with sometimes wanting to put my trainers on and just run.
Yes.
But where I was running to, I couldn't have told you. Like, it was just the switch in your head of like, I need to go, and having to like stop yourself to do it. But then home became like a bit prison like, to be honest. So it was it was wild.
Yeah. I remember going to see my cousin, who was just like a couple of blocks away from me, and I went alone without, because my husband said, you need a bit of a break. Just go. And I went, scheduled to go and see her and have a cup of tea. And I got to her house, I sat down, and she was pouring the tea. And I thought, all I could think in my head was, I need to go home. I can't be here. I need to go home. And it was so overwhelming that I just looked at her and I said, I'm so sorry, I have to leave. And bless her, she thought she'd done something wrong to offend me. And I had to message her afterwards to say, it's not you. I'm just, I think I have some postpartum stuff going on. It's not you. Nothing to do with you. It's just, I couldn't be there. I just could not sit there. I was not sitting even 5 minutes, and I had to get up and leave. So it's that very weird thing of, but when I was home, same thing. I was thinking about, I can just run away. I can just leave and just go. I could go to Cornwall. Maybe I could go to Cornwall and I could stay there. No one would ever find me. I'd be free. But then you leave and then you're like, no, I need to go back.
Yeah.
So it is this very, very weird place to be in where, you want to go, but you don't want to go. So I definitely understand that. So let's move ahead a little bit. So, and only share the part of the story that you're very comfortable with. So 28th of October, 2022 comes around. How old is Harlan at this point?
He is just over a month.
Okay. So still pretty small. And this is where everything sort of comes to a head now. And do you want to share what happened with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as like a sort of backtracking slightly, like by that point we were under the care of the perinatal team, but this was like following a decision from the crisis team that we'd had to pick our own medication. And it was just, I think that's where it was just wild in that sense of, I couldn't decide what I wanted for lunch, never mind like what medication I wanted to be on to be helping me out of this situation. Never experienced anything with our, and Andrew's the same, we've never experienced anything with our mental health before, and I didn't know any of the names of the tablets, I couldn't pronounce them, never mind like knowing any of them. And it was just, and by this point, like things are just, I think I could not see how anything was ever going to get better. And I think it was partly because I just didn't feel like safe with our care, didn't feel like supported. And I think by then things were just getting, they were getting so much worse. I've learned after, I've been really lucky to work it out, with an amazing therapist, and we worked through it together. Ellie was just incredible. And it was kind of explaining to me that, like, during birth with Harlan, at some point my brain must have thought I was going to die. And so I think then afterwards, why it spiraled so quickly for us was because my brain was kind of still wanting to do that process, because it was kind of the only way it worked out how to.
Stuck.
Yeah, it was just totally stuck. So for that kind of month leading up to the end of October, I'd basically be in a battle all the time with myself not to want to harm myself. Or, I mean, it's awful saying it out loud. When I say it to you now, it's like I can't even imagine how it was ever that bad, but I know it was, and I think that's why it's so important to say it. But I'd go into the kitchen and I'd want to put, like, I'd get a knife and I'd put that to myself, to my tummy, or like to my wrists, and it'd be like a constant battle of, like, no, like, I don't want to do it, but like my head was saying, like, that's what you want to do. And like everything was just like how can we harm you? It was just awful. So I think by the time, like, the 28th of October came around, I just wanted to sleep, because I hadn't been able to sleep. I think I just wanted everything to stop, and to stop having those, like, internal fights and just everything that was going on. So yeah, I mean,
you must be exhausted at this point, going through all of that. Like,
I think,
the mind is fighting the body.
absolutely. Like, I think just I didn't know what else I could do, and I guess I just wanted to sleep on my own accord, which sounds really then stupid to say, that I then took an overdose to basically sleep for a bit, because I just wanted everything to stop so that I could get some rest, which now, like, I think about it, just sounds like off the scale, but
you weren't in the right frame of mind, and I think that's really important. And we always see these things on TV, where moms do harm to themselves or to their children. And I always want to stress the point, because people will say, well, how could you do that? How could you harm your child? How could you harm yourself? And I just want people to understand that when you're in that space, that mental space, you are not thinking rationally. You are not thinking logically. You are in a different headspace. And what you are thinking makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to you in this weird, it's very hard to explain.
Yeah.
But when you're in that frame of mind, it's very important, I think, for people to understand that makes sense when you're in that frame of mind.
Yeah.
You're not in a logical place. You're not in a rational place.
No.
And and I think that's really,
yeah, I was not myself. Like, how I can describe it was that, like, everything was just like a really, like, the heaviest blanket you could ever put on, and it just covered you the whole time, and everything just became black. Like, the joy in anything was just gone. It was obviously autumn at the time. I love autumn. It's my favorite time of year. Couldn't see that. It was, I can't. Once you've had that sort of experience, you can't really put it into words for someone else if they haven't gone through it. So yeah, I slept on our bathroom floor after I'd taken the overdose for a little while, and then woke up in a panic, screaming for Andrew that what I'd done, and that I was needed help, and I didn't want to die. And it was like that part again of my brain was trying to fight to stay alive. And so then from there we went, he phoned the ambulance, and I went into hospital for obviously getting treatment for taking the overdose. So yeah, couldn't have got any more rock bottom if I tried.
And then you go to the Nottingham Mother and Baby Unit. You make the decision to go there. Was that a difficult decision?
Yeah, it was. I've described it since as like the best and the worst decision I've ever had to make. And I remember, like, packing the bag. It was also quite complicated, because I'd have to have technically gone to Nottingham for a night and then move back up to Leeds, which is our local mother and baby unit. They didn't have a bed available when I was going. So it was like Nottingham for a night or Manchester. And I don't know why, but we picked Nottingham. And so I remember, like, packing the bag the night before, and it was just, it was just awful. I thought I can't go, because I could barely leave the house. I couldn't leave the house, like, pretty much. I'd have to force myself, or Andrew would have to, like, literally drag me out the house to even go for a walk. Or I sort of thought, how can I can't pack a bag, I can't think straight. So it was just all this overwhelming feeling of, like, I can't do this, I can't even get in the car. It was awful. We were driving down the night, and I'll always remember it. It was absolutely chucking it down with rain. It's obviously dark because it's October. It couldn't have been any like worse if it had tried. It was just like the longest drive of our lives, I think, because we weren't really speaking. Harlan was asleep, bless him. He was oblivious, thank goodness. Yeah, it was awful. And then we got down there and we couldn't really find it to start with, as you do. And obviously, because it was everything's worse in those situations, isn't it? Where it was the best and the worst decision I've ever had to make. But
would you like other mothers to know, whoever's, maybe they're going through the same thing, or they know someone who's about to make that kind of decision? What do you want them to know about these units and going into these units?
I mean, I never even knew these units existed until I needed to be in one, which again, I think is another piece of education that no one ever talks about that when you're pregnant. But I would want other mothers to know that when I say it was the worst decision, when I say it was also the best decision, and I know it's the unknown and it's the fear, but they 100% will make you better and take care of you. Like, they're not something to be fearful of. They are incredible places with incredible members of staff that, I cannot stress enough about how important it is. Like, if you're ever worried about it, please don't be, because like, they will take care of you from the minute you get in there to the minute you leave. And even now, if I wanted to, I can reach out and I can ring them. They're an incredible place, and I would want no one to fear going in. And if I can help with anything like that, of talking it through with somebody, and if they wanted to reach out, like, I'd be happy to do that, because they're incredible places, and I don't think they get the credit they deserve, because, like I say, I didn't know about them until I was actually in one.
It's that lack of education again, that lack of
absolutely, yeah.
So within a week, you start to turn a corner. What was different about being in there that helped to shift things for you?
I mean, straight away, my consultant was just like, I think all I can describe it was like, they just scooped me up, and like, I don't know, the care that you felt with them, I can't really describe it. It was just incredible. And I just felt so safe, and I could start to build trust up, which I felt was like so important, because I hadn't had any of that with the previous care. But the biggest change was like, my consultant just went, she was straight up. She said, I'm happy to mix things around and explore things. But she was like, I'm taking you off the medication that you've been trying and putting you on this. If it doesn't work, we will relook at that. But she said, this is where I want to start. And when you just can get that sense someone knows what they're talking about, and they've just seen everything before, and nothing you can say could shock them. They just get it, wholeheartedly get it. And straight away, like, Dr. Amy just was on it with my medication plan. And I think it's just because it is 24/7 care, there's nothing else. It's so precious, is that, because there's, at any moment, at any time, there's somebody there, and you can turn to them, and they can just help you through whatever is happening in that moment, in that hour, in that 10 minutes. Like, they're just so good at what they do.
And I think you've keyed in on something really important, because I read a lot about trauma, and I'm currently studying a somatic trauma-informed coaching course. And that's the key thing, is that you've talked earlier about feeling like you were stuck in fight or flight. And really the only way to come out of that is to start feeling safe again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So start feeling safe again. That's when the body gets the signal that, okay, it's okay to come out of that state. We're safe. And I think that's probably what they provided. And that's why this conversation is so important, is that we need to start changing things and start making women feel safe and supported, because that's where we'll see the decline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's around making sure that support's there in place, because as we've discovered, I think that's half the issue. There just isn't that education in place in the first, that's there as you enter into parenthood. But then there's also there's just gaps. There's gaps in support. And so, I think you're right. The trust level was exactly what I needed at that time. And it was because the bed came available at Leeds a week after I'd already been a week at Nottingham. And it was really tricky because, like, a lot of people had said, oh, we'll come and visit you when you're at Leeds, when you're a bit closer, because obviously I appreciate trekking down from North Yorkshire to Nottingham. It's over 100 miles. And and I felt a bit I was betraying friends and family in a way, but I knew it was what I needed to do to get better. So I declined the bed and the move to Leeds, and I said I want to stay for the rest of my recovery at Nottingham, because I think it's like, yeah, the trust and the feeling of safe. I just felt like between my key worker, the ward manager, and my consultant, I thought these guys are like the dream team. Like, yeah, I can't
and
lose
that's
if
what
I
you
stay
needed.
here.
Yeah, that's what you needed, and you knew that you could feel the difference. And how long was your recovery, and when did you start feeling like yourself again?
Well, I mean, I wasn't recovered by any means, but even within that first week, I remember the Friday Andrew came to see me and my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law particularly, she said, I cannot believe it, like the difference in you in a week. And I said, I know, Beck, it's unbelievable. Like, I think I would definitely had a long way to go at that point, but it gave me that glimmer. Like, I always say to the guys at Nottingham, like, you kept my light burning for me when I couldn't do it. And it's just like, I could start to see that little bit of light, a little bit of me back, like laughing, just chatting, but I think I got discharged on the 15th of December. And I'd say, I mean, obviously I was like so much better than where I was, but I think it wasn't till the February, if I'm honest, that I was started to get into my groove. And because obviously I felt like I was starting from scratch. Harlan wasn't a newborn, but I almost felt like I was bringing a newborn home with me, because the rest of that time that I'd had with him at home was just darkness. I felt like I had to rebuild all of that, and Nottingham helped me do it to, even like bathing him and stuff. Like, I just had to go back to basics, even though I'd technically had like a month of him trying to learn that. I just had to restart, rebuild. So I think it was like from the February that I remember going to a baby class with my friend, because she had her little girl at a similar time. And I remember thinking then, like, yeah, like, this is us. This is how it was meant to be. And which was bittersweet, because I will never get that time back with Harlan, and we will never get that time back as a little family of three. And it's, and that was the other part of it, was we were down in Nottingham and Andrew's at home, and we weren't together. And that was another decision of like the mother and baby unit, like that would split our family. But I guess all I could look at it was, this is like a very short term pain for like a long term like happiness and wellness. So yeah, but I'd say it was the February. I was thinking like, yeah, I've got this.
Yeah, amazing. And then you have a second child. So she was planned? Had you planned to have a second child? Okay. And how did you feel during that pregnancy? Were you nervous at all about whether this would all happen again?
I mean, we always said we wanted 2 children. If we could be lucky enough to have 2 kids, we always wanted 2. And there was a long time after having Harlan that I was like, I'm fine with 1. Like, I was like, it's fine. But I knew deep down I was kidding myself, because we'd always said about having 2. And I look back and I'm on, like, my deathbed in years to come, hopefully. And I think I never did it because I was too scared. I'd be so annoyed it'd be untrue. So it became apparent that, like, I couldn't let the fear of it happening again win, because I thought, well, we've got through it once, surely we'd do it again. But I think, so we didn't go into it lightly by any means, like having another baby.
Decision.
Yeah, it wasn't something we were like, hey, yeah, that's it, we'll just go for it. But at the same time, we knew we couldn't really let it win. That's why, like, Livy's called Livy, because it was all about like second chances and a celebration of life. And so once we knew she was a little girl, like, that just kind of fit, and I couldn't think of a better name for her, really. Luckily Andrew agreed this time, because he didn't with Harlan's name. So we didn't go into it lightly at all. We put as much in place as we could for that to happen again. and had an amazing care package this time with the same perinatal team but different new members, and we put so much in place and we were very aware of what could happen. Yeah, not easy, but we knew it was the right thing for us to do as a family.
Yeah, you were a bit more prepared, a bit more realistic
Yeah.
about what could potentially happen because you've been on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have lived, and then it happens again.
Yeah.
What was that like, knowing what you knew the second time around?
I mean, some things were easier because I knew what I was looking out for, and I knew I could be really like, no, this is happening. I suppose I was a bit more, I probably was a nightmare, to be honest, for the team, because I was like, no, I know what's happening, and I need this put in place, I need this now, because there's no way I'm going to that place again, that darkness. So, but it was harder because we'd had 2 weeks of almost like the bubble bliss, and then the big hormone shift dropped at 2 weeks. I could then start to see that the symptoms were coming back in, and obviously once you've had it, you're more prone to it. Not necessarily, but it is a risk factor that you're higher a risk of developing it again. So yeah, it was hard. It was easier in some ways because I could see what was coming, but then in other ways it was harder because a lot of people were like, oh, well, you've done it before, you know how to get better. And it was like, do I? Can I do this?
Yeah, a lot of hard work. It's still exhausting. Now you've got 2 kids as opposed to 1. It's a lot harder.
Yeah, it was. And I think what was harder, I suppose, this time was when I knew I wanted to because at home last time with Harlan, I felt like home was where I got really ill. And I think then, I suppose I look at Nottingham as a bit of a safety blanket. So I sort of said to my perinatal team, like, I want to go back. I want to be an inpatient at Nottingham. It's like my safe place, like the trust thing, like we said before. But what was so difficult was leaving Harlan, whereas last time it was me and Harlan, whereas this time I had to leave him. And that's the bit now that will like choke me. And I'm so much more compassionate with myself than I ever was before because of what we've been through. But that was what was really difficult, was leaving Harlan. And I remember he was like moving up a room at nursery, and I was thinking, I'm not even there for it. Like, and it just broke me like that. Those parts of it were really, really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's not easy. And I know when my whole thing was, that's why I didn't want to have a second child, because I was like, I mean, what about the first one? Then what happens with him? Then he has to witness me going through all of this, and I'm not there for him like I have been, and it's rebuilding myself again, but I mean, my second child was a completely different story. Thankfully, I didn't have the same experience, but yeah, I can completely resonate with that it's so hard when you've got another little human being that needs you. Definitely so much harder. So what do you think, now you've gone through this twice before, so what do you think is currently missing from perinatal care for moms, especially first-time moms, that we need to start advocating for?
I mean, we've mentioned it quite a bit, and I feel like it's quite a broad term, but for me, at the starting point, it's probably an education piece I know you mentioned about NCT, and I'm not trying to be funny towards our class, but we did NCT, and I remember the part about the perinatal mental health illnesses, brushed over it like 2 minutes. Like, even if it was that, it was like just didn't even play a part in it. And like now I sort of look back and I'm like, that's ironic, because they were saying how rare it was, and I was like, you know what, it actually isn't. And so I think, as a starting point, not that you're trying to frighten any new parents or existing parents, but I think it's 1 in 5 women will experience something with their mental health from having their babies, even during pregnancy. So I think it has to be more of an education piece. Yeah. So I think that's what's missing as a starting point.
Because knowledge is power at the end of the day. Like, if
absolutely.
you compare your experiences first versus second, that knowledge of knowing of what potentially could happen, I mean, how you prepared yourself and you knew what your options were. You didn't even know the units existed. We need to be, it's all well and good to get caught up in the beauty of having a baby, but we need to be realistic and say, there's also this other side that can happen, and we need to protect moms and protect them through knowledge and empowering them, I think.
Absolutely. I honestly couldn't agree more. The fact that I suppose it sort of blows my mind that I didn't even know a mother and baby unit existed, but yet it's a place where I've been with both of my children and they've basically saved my life, like, to put it bluntly. But yeah, no, I never knew it was even a part of it. And I think that is just such a massive piece of work to do and educate people, and just to share that knowledge. So this opportunity today is incredible, because I'm always up for, if I can, share that knowledge of any experience that we've had to someone else, so they don't have to go through it. Any time I could get that opportunity to help someone, and even just encourage someone to trust their gut, like, if something doesn't feel right, or you want to question like the risks that they lay down, it's like, actually, what percentage is it when it comes to that? Like, would that even have to be an induction or whatever it might be? I think it's just like you say, it's knowledge is power, and it's having that confidence, isn't it, to just be like, actually, can we look at this? Can we go back through that? Yeah, no, definitely. So then I think the education piece is missing, and I think what's really difficult is, depending on where you are in the country, I hate the terminology, but the postcode lottery of your care is very apparent. And where we are in North Yorkshire, there's a serious lack of support. And if the support is there, then we do have a perinatal team, and they're split into two to cover the area, because obviously such a massive rural area. They're still so overstretched that what worries me is people that will slip through that net or don't hit that certain criteria, which is you're at a bad way if you're hitting that criteria. But say if you don't hit that, where else do you go? Like, there isn't anything. It's all relying on like charities or local individuals that have set things up, and it's just not really good enough.
It's not. And so through your experience, you've decided to turn that into something beautiful. You've started up Brighter Skies with your husband, Andrew. So tell us a little bit about Brighter Skies. What is it all about? What are you advocating for?
So we knew that we needed to do something. And if we could, like we say, pass on any knowledge that we've got, any experience, to help someone else go through it. Brighter Skies, our little strapline is that no family deserves to be left in the dark. And that is very much what we stand for. So Brighter Skies is our campaign, and it is to be committed to better perinatal wellbeing, because it doesn't always come down to mental wellbeing. So what we're really just trying to do is promote the awareness of there isn't enough support and education pieces around becoming parents. So Brighter Skies is essentially trying to get a couple of things in place and really like advocate for new mums.
Amazing work that you guys are doing. And what would you say to a new mom who's out there right now listening and feeling like this sounds like me, but she's too terrified to say anything or put her hand up? What would you say to her?
I would say, I hear you and I see you, and that doesn't change that it's not absolutely terrifying. But I think for me, if we can talk about it, shame dies in conversations, where you feel safe, and there isn't anything that you say that could shock the right people in that support. It certainly wouldn't shock me, but I think if you were speaking to a perinatal expert, nothing you would say would shock them. So like, if that's the difference between you're worried about what that comes across like, or what people would think, it's like, you've just got to get yourself well. So whatever is going on, like, you've just always got to reach out. But I do appreciate how difficult that is. And I know that I can say it quite like, I'll just reach out. I know how much that takes to do that, particularly with things that, aren't all over the Instagram perfect new mum life, where you have intrusive thoughts, or you can't get out of bed, or whatever. It's really hard to admit that there's something happening. But I just would hope that anyone could do it, because you can always reach out to me as well, and if I can help in any way with signposting, then I will. But they're not on their own, is what I'd want to really say.
And I think it's very important to mention that the whole social media perfect mother baby experience we need to understand that also makes it worse. Because I remember, I think at the time when I had my son, Princess Catherine had just had Louis. And so it was all this like, fanfare around her and what a great mother she is and she's this and that. And I was just sitting there thinking like, I can't even connect to my kid. I can't connect to my baby. I don't feel like that. I don't feel a bond with him. I don't feel like I feel horrible. And to let mothers know that that's okay. When you feel like that, that means there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing wrong with you that you're not having that experience. You're just having a different experience, and not to feel bad about it. Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest thing of it is it's curable.
Yeah.
Like I think, it's an illness. It's so difficult because it's within the mind. I think it's just always that immediate like taboo with it, but it's an illness and that means it's treatable. So, explaining about your symptoms of an intrusive thoughts or, self-harm or, it's no different from kind of going, oh, actually, I've got a twinge here. But because it's within your mind, I think people they don't want to share it. And I do get it. It is terrifying and you do feel that shame or like, it's so difficult, but you're right. You've just you've got to realize like it's not your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And don't measure yourself against those standards because it's not everyone's experience. That's not everyone's experience.
Everyone writes the different stories, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And what would you suggest to a loved one, so someone who knows either a friend or a colleague or their spouse that's currently going through, looks like they might be suffering from postpartum depression or anxiety? What would you say to them to give them an idea of how they can help?
It's a really tricky one because having watched my loved ones go through it with me, again, it's so hard not to feel like guilty. But again, I know it was nothing I could control and I've had to learn how to kind of deal with that. I loved one having that confidence and courage to say, actually, something's not quite right. But I think you've just got to be really open and honest. And as hard as those conversations are, I think if you can start, opening that up to say, well, just simple questions of like, how come, what's making you maybe feel this way? Or I think just being really open and honest would be my starting point. And just to let them know that like you're with them every step of it, as much as like they aren't going for, they're not in your mind. So like it's hard because you are the one doing it. But just so that they don't feel like they're on their own. I think that's such a massive thing, but really open, honest conversations. And I know that's hard, so hard. If you have to say to a loved one, have you thought about hurting yourself or harming yourself? I mean, it's gut wrenching, but I think those types of conversations could be the difference between you still having your loved one and them being gone. So as hard as it is and as cringe, as it maybe is to ask sort of really, really frank questions, please do it. Please just ask the questions, because I think what's the worst that could happen if you ask them, I guess that could upset your other half, but I think that not asking them, you can't really risk that. So
Steph, thank you so much for your time today and being so brave to share your story with us. I have no doubt that your story is going to help someone else, even if it is just one person.
Absolutely.
If people want to find you or Brighter Skies, where can they go? How can they find you? What can they do to help?
For our website, brighterskiessupport.org.uk, and then on there's links through to our Instagram, and we're going to do a little revamp of the website because we've got our Facebook pages now, but we've always got our inbox email open as well, so it's all on the website for you to find, and it's us at the other end of it. I know how terrifying it is and scary, but please reach out.
Amazing. And I'll put the links in the show notes if anybody would like to reach out to Steph or to Andrew at Brighter Skies and make donations if they want. I don't know, is that
we do have because we aren't a charity, because we're campaigning and we're trying to make a few like political changes, because that's hopefully how we can make some bigger changes happen within our trust. And so we aren't a charity, but we have been asked if we would have donations, which is incredible. And I just nearly fell over when someone was like, please can I donate? So we did set up a Just Giving page, so if anyone wants to donate, that would be amazing. And that just goes on, you know, providing tea and coffee for the group, any printing costs. I know they're not very excited or things like that, but you know, obviously it comes at a cost, and that's what kind of your kind and amazing donations would help go towards.
Amazing. And we can put the link for that in the show notes too, if anybody would like to reach out. I know the audience is mostly midlife women, so maybe you're out there and you've gone through the same experience and you'd like to help other women. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been absolutely lovely speaking to you.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It's just, feel very honoured.
Just want to say thank you again to Steph. Thank you for your bravery, your openness, and for trusting me with something so deeply personal. I have no doubt that what you shared today will reach the ears of someone who needs it, and that is what matters. If you're listening right now and something in today's conversation has resonated, whether you're a new mom, an existing mom, a partner, or a friend, please know that what Steph described is real. It is more common than we are told, and it is treatable. You are not broken, failing, or unwell. You just deserve care and support and to feel safe. Now, if you'd like to connect with Steph and Andrew's incredible Brighter Skies campaign, you can find them at brighterskiessupport.org.uk. All the links, including their support group, social media, and Just Giving page, are in the show notes below. You know where to go. Now, please share this episode. You never know whose life it might change. And I just want to make an important note. So please, the Midlife Awakening podcast is intended for informational and storytelling purposes only. The content shared in this episode is based on personal experience and does not constitute medical, psychological, or clinical advice. We are not qualified healthcare professionals, and nothing discussed here should be used as a substitute for advice from your GP, midwife, health visitor, psychiatrist, therapist, or any other qualified medical or mental health provider. If you or someone you know is struggling with postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, or any perinatal mental health condition, please reach out to a qualified healthcare professional as a matter of urgency. If you are in the UK and in a crisis, please call 999 or go to your nearest AN. I have linked in the show notes support resources for Pandas Foundation, Mind, Samaritans, and NHS Perinatal Mental Health Care, and of course, Brighter Skies. So until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your heart, and remember, it's never too late to begin again. Bye for now.